Alright, what's going on, guys? Chili Games back again. Welcome back to the channel. It has been probably a week since my last video, and I apologize about that. The last week has been pretty busy with work, and we've been moving my girlfriend out of her apartment back into her parents' place. So, you know how moving goes. It's never an easy task, so we were doing that, and then I was just kind of being able to play here and there. We didn't really get much in terms of, you know, content, but anyways, with the news, I believe it was yesterday, we got the news that the Parseval will be getting a nerf as well as the Vaser and the Rhine. Basically, what's happening is they are nerfing the AP bombs. I believe if you're looking at the Parseval, it is like 7,600 damage as opposed to like 96. So 9,600 damage for the AP bomb. So pretty significant nerf, and I definitely think it needed to happen. Is it the only nerf that I think needs to happen? And in total, I think the evasive maneuver skills really needs to be looked at and just either completely done away with, or what. I mean, I would hope that it would be completely done away with. It's just, it feels very cheap, and there's no real counter to it. So, you know, the only counterplay that you have against the carrier is basically, does the carrier player suck, or can you pull off a dodge while you're also angling towards multiple targets? And that's pretty much what I was doing here. I was watching out. I was kind of just surveying the field for this first spawn. The Roma here, he cannot dodge, you know, because he has to face off against the 4 other ships that are shooting at him. So he can't just turn flat broadside and just try to dodge the torpedoes, because you're either taking the 13,000 damage and risking a flood from me, or you're risking a devastating strike from a friendly battleship or something like that. So the just dodge argument is very, very easy to just throw out there and be like, oh, you're bad, just dodge. Like, obviously, if you could dodge, that is what you should be doing. And you can mitigate some strikes by dodging, making it a little bit more difficult to hit. But dodging is not always a valid option when you're having to play against surface ships, and it's something the aircraft carrier planes don't have to deal with. You're not risking your ship. Your planes are basically just your ammo. So it's very easy to pick and choose your battles, your angles, or whatever, to make it to where it's basically impossible for the ships to even have an option of dodging. And even then, these planes are lightning fast, 189 knots. They can get over 200, but I'm not using that build. And they're very fast. Torps are very fast, so the torpedoes are very, very dangerous. Do I think the Parseval is going to be good after this little nerf? Well, it's only nerfing the AP bombs. So, in my opinion, I think Parseval is still going to be probably the most dominant. The torpedo planes are actually probably your go-getters in terms of XP. It's very easy to torpedo DDs. It is very easy to, you know, consistently hit cruisers, which if you hit a DD with 1 or 2 torps, that's easily 60% of their health. I can't tell you how many times I've devastated a IJN boat. It's just ridiculous. And the cruisers, as you'll see later on in this match, unfortunate. Any tier 6 cruiser that does not have a heal is severely threatened by a carrier with good torps. Shikaku maybe a little bit more, has a bigger alpha strike, but with the plane speed and with EM right now, it's much easier for the Parseval to come around for a second strike, which is where your damage is going to start stacking up. And that's what I was saying basically when EM came out. I was like, man, this is giving way to a lot of opportunities to come by and get second, to keep your full squadron and get the second strike off. And it just makes for a very just really silly kind of game, I guess, game meta for the carriers. There's just nothing you can do to counter it. Coming in on the Minsk, probably could have taken a little bit better of an angle, but again, you drop 1 set on the DDs. If they dodge, they're usually going to not pay attention to your second strike. We use EM. I probably didn't need to use it there, but we have 3 charges first squadron, so we kind of just throw them out there. We didn't get the best drop on this guy, however, these torps are so fast, there's really not a lot of time to actually dodge them, so the torpedo bombers are so strong, and like, yes, they don't do as much damage as the Shokaku, but you don't really have to have like a 10k torpedo alpha to do a lot of damage versus DDs. As long as you hit them, they are losing a significant amount of HP coming around the Fletcher. And this game was actually very close. I really didn't realize this until I watched it over again, but it was one of those things where I was like deciding to, my carrier is obviously closest to the sea flank, so I was like, man, we need to take care of this flank. And then I was looking at our Kagera, I was like, he's kiting away, he shouldn't be spotted. So I took the chance on him, and he actually did a very good job this game. Like, actually, a really good job this game, and it really helped us secure this victory because it came down to the wire. Again, for the Fletcher, we hit him on the front run. The front run usually is where people are going to dodge. You can hit those bow-end torpedoes because they're just so fast. And but then the real damage is when you come back around for the kill shot, and it's just kind of disgusting because they're either having to angle or they've reduced speed, so they don't have a lot of speed to come back around. Notice the York and B-cap. Obviously, with the Tirpitz and the Bismarck in the division, they're huddled very close, so you can usually tell at that kind of play style that they are probably abusing or wanting to abuse the will to rebuild. So keeping that in mind, trying to get some resets on the York here. We actually don't have a cap circle, and we are down on ships, and it's not looking too great. But here's what I'm talking about. You know, we didn't even use EM here. Came around, knocked an engine out on the York or something, came back around, and he doesn't have enough speed to dodge. And we actually put him on a permanent flood to hit him for 3 torpedoes as well. So that's 15,000 damage. Basically every time you hit a strike like that, with the potential for potential floods, all that kind of stuff. So he's perma-flooded for about 45 seconds, and he actually goes down. And that's what I'm saying when I talk about how good these torpedoes are versus cruisers. Yes, if they're paying attention to you, they can dodge, obviously, but there's just dodging, like I said earlier, is just not always an option because the surface ships have to play in accordance to the enemy surface ships, and to dodge, most times you're going to be compromising your position, and you're going to get a look at the kind of the trolliness of the AP bombs here. Not getting the best strikes. What I've found with the AP bombs is if you are not perfectly over the top of them, you're basically giving the AP bombs it's basically telling them like, hey, please go to the space where the ship is not covered. It's honestly kind of funny. You will have 90% of the ship filled in the circle, and then the AP bombs are just like, I'm going to just go to that one little 10% spot there that's not going to be in the reticle. So they can be trolly, and that's why I say, like, for me personally, when I played the Parseval, I use the torpedo bombers probably 70% of the time, just because it depends on the matchmaking. Like here with the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, if I would have spawned over there at that side, I probably would have tried to torpedo the Fletcher first, and then I just would have been using the AP bombers. But they can be trolly, so you have to take that into account. And when they do troll you, and you really need it, you kind of just have to be like, oh, well, like, you know, they're trolly. But if you've used the torpedo bombers to great success, you know, we've helped get rid of both DDs, and we've torpedoed both cruisers, so we've gotten rid of a lot of the battleships kind of support. And once you get rid of battleship support, they're kind of just sitting ducks. And so that is honestly why I think Parseval is the best carrier. Just because once you knock out the ships that actually can do, or at least contribute a lot to games like domination, stuff like that, the effectiveness of a battleship just gets absolutely neutered. And then it's basically just picking off. So what I'm doing now is I noticed the Bismarck got torpedoed there, and we're trying to kill him because they have little rebuild. So we need to focus one target. I noticed that he got flooded on that torpedo from the Kagero, so a good Kagero. Notice how also the Kagero is right behind the battleships in the cap circle. That's going to come in really important. Using his concealment to his advantage, and honestly it's really, really nice to see a destroyer playing like that because he knows his detection, he knows his speed, he knows he can evade the battleships, but he's in the cap circle, contesting points as quick as possible. And if you're noticing, the Bismarck's actually not dead, so we go ahead and select the Tirpitz, which is honestly probably a misplay on my part. I should have went ahead and knocked out the Bismarck, just because World Rebuild is very, very strong. Almost get the coup de grace there with the triple citadel, but again, you can see how, you know, it can be a little iffy. But like I'm saying, Tirpitz and Bismarck are sitting ducks right now. They can't really do anything. They're in a crossfire between a DD that they know is right in front of them. They're having to angle, and they just don't have the speed. They don't have the, I guess, the luxury to be able to dodge all the time because they're having to avoid surface ships, stuff like that. I do end up getting spotted, and that's something you have to really pay attention to with the Parseval. The detection range is actually not the best, but I think it's actually pretty good. I would hope that all of the carriers got detection like the Parseval. It's one of those things where it's just like, oh, the Parseval has crap detection. Honestly, it's like Shikoku and Lexington detections, pretty ridiculously stupid. So I would hope that they would all kind of be around the 8.5 plus. I think my Parseval is like 8.8, something like that. And again, the Kagero does a fantastic job of cleaning up the Tirpitz, which is super nice. And realize that we are down pretty heavily on points, and it's gonna be pretty iffy. And I really didn't notice how close this game came down to, and you'll notice it in the next, like, the last 30 seconds of this game. I was like, wow, this is actually really close. So, biggest counter probably to Parseval effectiveness is definitely going to be your USN battleships. Anything tier 6 is fair game. You can Citadel them all day. They're usually slower. I found Nelson to be a little iffy to target just because if you hit the turrets, you're not going to Citadel things, obviously. You know, turrets take up like half of the ship. So, when in doubt, just use the torpedo bombers. I was actually pretty unlucky to not get any sort of flooding, and I was already committed to this attack because I figured I would have flooded him there. So we just kind of thrown this guy, and I'm actually getting a little bit desperate because I realized that my torpedo planes are actually running a little bit low. So we have to make it count. We do get that one last torpedo for 4,000 damage, and that one little torpedo is actually going to do a lot of good for us. And looking back at it, I was like, wow, this is actually kind of a perfect setup here. But I mean, the torpedo bombers are just insane. Like, they, across the board, it's probably your best ordnance out of all carriers. They're just so good versus, they're so versatile. I guess that's how I'm going to word it. They're just so versatile versus so many targets. Obviously, they don't do the damage, but their damage sticks, and catching a battleship on them from the flood is much easier with these torpedoes because they're faster. You can aim them at certain spots. I aim towards the back, and we actually kill him. So if we didn't hit that one little plane torpedo in the strike before, we actually wouldn't have killed that guy, which would have taken a little bit more time. And notice I only had 2 torpedo bombers left. We probably could have bombed him, but getting a Citadel on those tier 7 USN battleships is pretty difficult. You basically have to drop as soon as you're able to drop them. And even then, that gives them a little bit bigger of an area to maneuver, and you have to line up your shot a lot more carefully because you have to drop it as soon as you get them. So whenever I see a USN battleship, I usually just try to play with my teammates and try to coordinate floods, damage cons, or whatever, or at least try to do that. But overall, they still do pretty consistent damage, and as you see, the points are actually very, very close. We only went over probably was like 30 seconds ago, and we actually held the 2 caps, and we end up shredding the last squadron of that guy's planes. We didn't actually get to see him, which is sad. But overall, a pretty fun game. Got a Kraken. Felt like we played the field pretty well. We could have made some better choices, could have made some better jobs versus the Minsk. And overall, I'm happy that this ship is getting a little bit nerfed in the AP department. I don't think it's fair that you can just bomb a target for 29,000 damage. We'll see. I would really hope that EM as a consumable goes away. It's just very cheap in a game like this. Absolute immunity just doesn't belong in a game where you have to trade, you know, you're trading damage, it's just dumb. It just feels very, very cheap, and I hope it would go away. But I believe Monday the bomb damage is getting nerfed by about 2,000 damage, and as well as the tier 3 and the tier 4. So honestly, as dominant as this thing is, I'm kind of happy because I definitely do not like playing against this thing, and it's honestly a little bit too good to play with. You just dunk on everything. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good 4th of July, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.